The bar was dark and smelled like cheap alcohol and sweat. Hannah sat in the corner, as far from everyone else as she could get. Her large frame barely fit in the metal chair, and her wings pressed tight against her back. She kept them folded so small that they hurt, but it was better than drawing attention. The glass in front of her was half empty. She stared into the amber liquid like it held answers to questions she stopped asking years ago. The ice had melted an hour ago, but she didn't care. The drink wasn't about taste anymore. It was about having something to do with her hands, a reason to sit alone, without anyone asking questions. Around her, the space station cantina buzzed with life. Traders argued over prices. Miners celebrated a good haul. A group of travelers laughed too loud at a table near the entrance. None of them looked at her. That was exactly how she wanted it. Hannah's scales caught the dim light sometimes, flashing blue and silver. They used to shine bright, like starlight. Her mother once told her that their scales were a gift from the ancient sky gods. Now they looked dull and tired, just like everything else about her. She was Draken. That word used to mean something. It used to mean honor and strength. It used to make people bow their heads in respect. Now it just made them nervous. Now it made mothers pull their children closer when she walked by. 5 years. 5 years since she left her home world. 5 years since they cast her out and told her never to return. 5 years of wandering from station to station, planet to planet, never staying long enough for anyone to know her name. The bartender, a four-armed alien with green skin, kept his distance. He refilled her glass from across the bar, sliding it down the counter. He never came close. Nobody did. Hannah remembered the trial. She remembered standing before the Council of Elders, her wings spread wide, her head held high. They told her she brought shame to their people. They told her she was weak. They told her she forgot what it meant to be Draken, all because she refused to kill prisoners, all because she looked into the eyes of defeated enemies and saw people, not targets. The Draken code was simple and brutal. Show no mercy. Victory through strength. Honor through blood. She broke that code. She let the prisoners live. She called for peace when her people demanded war. They took everything from her. Her rank, her family, her home. They stripped the military markings from her armor and broke her ceremonial sword in front of everyone. Then they sent her away with nothing but the clothes on her back and a warning never to speak their name again. Hannah took another sip. The alcohol burned going down, but it was a familiar burn, a comfortable one, better than the burning shame that woke her up most nights. She noticed the stairs before she heard the whispers. A human woman had entered the bar, holding the hand of a small child. The woman looked tired. Her clothes rumpled like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. But the child, a little girl with dark hair and pigtails, looked around with wide, curious eyes. The woman, Yuna, tried to guide her daughter toward a table far from Hannah's corner. But children don't understand fear the way adults do. They don't see monsters where adults see danger. The little girl, Mina, pulled free from her mother's grip. Her small feet carried her across the cantina floor, past the miners and traders, past the warning looks from strangers. She walked straight toward Hannah's table. Hannah saw her coming. She turned her head away, hoping the child would lose interest. She hunched her shoulders, making herself smaller. It never worked with children. They were always the curious ones. Mina stopped right in front of Hannah's table. She stood there, barely tall enough to see over the edge. Her small hands gripped the table's rim as she pulled herself up on her toes. Hannah kept her eyes on her drink. Maybe the child would leave if she ignored her. Maybe the mother would come grab her and apologize, and they would both disappear. "Excuse me," Mina said. Her voice was small but clear. Hannah said nothing. "Excuse me, miss." Mina tried again. Behind her, Yuna rushed over. "Mina, no. Come here right now." Her voice was sharp with fear and embarrassment, but Mina didn't move. She stared up at Hannah with those big eyes, full of something Hannah hadn't seen in a long time. Not fear, not disgust, just simple, honest curiosity mixed with something else, something that looked like hope. Hannah finally looked down at the child. She had a round face with chubby cheeks. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She wore a yellow dress with a cartoon character on it, something cheerful and bright that didn't belong in this dark place. "Mina, please," Una said, reaching for her daughter's arm. Mina pulled away again, keeping her eyes locked on Hannah. "Are you a dragon lady?" she asked. Hannah felt something crack inside her chest. When was the last time someone spoke to her without fear? When was the last time anyone called her anything other than it or that thing? Something like that, Hannah said quietly. Her voice was rough from not using it much. Days would go by without her speaking to anyone. Mina smiled. It was a genuine smile, full of wonder. "You're pretty. Your scales are shiny." No one had called her pretty in 5 years. Hannah didn't know what to say to that. Una finally got a grip on Mina's shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she said to Hannah, not meeting her eyes. "She doesn't understand. We'll leave you alone." "Wait," Mina said, her voice suddenly urgent. She twisted in her mother's grip, trying to stay facing Hannah. "Mommy, she could help. She looks strong." "Mina, that's enough," Una said, her voice cracking. She was trying not to cry, but Mina's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, not the fake, crying children do when they want something. These were tears of desperation. "Please," she said, looking right at Hannah. "Can you help my brother? Please? Nobody else will help us. Mommy says nobody can save him, but you look like you could. Please." The word hung in the air between them. Please. Such a simple word. Such a powerful word. Hannah's hand tightened around her glass. She should say no. She should turn away. She was done being a warrior, done fighting, done caring about anything except her next drink and her next job hauling cargo or fixing engines. But she made the mistake of looking into Mina's eyes again. And in those eyes, she saw something she recognized. She saw the same desperation she felt 5 years ago when she stood before the council. She saw the same hope she carried when she begged them to choose mercy over violence. She saw herself reflected in a child's tears. "What happened to your brother?" Hannah heard herself ask. Una's eyes went wide with shock. Mina's face lit up with sudden hope. Una pulled out the chair across from Hannah and sat down slowly. Her hands shook as she placed them flat on the table. Mina climbed into her mother's lap, her small arms wrapping around Una's neck. Hannah waited. She had learned that rushing people who were hurting never helped. They needed time to find their words. "His name is Gio," Una finally said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "He's 12 years old. He's my son. And 3 days ago, raiders took him." The word raiders made several people at nearby tables look over. Raiders were common in the Outer Rim, but that didn't make them less dangerous. Most people turn away quickly, not want to get involved. "We were on a transport ship," Una continued. "Just a civilian vessel heading to the inner colonies. I got a new job at a hospital there. Better pay, better schools for the kids, a fresh start." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We were so close, just 2 days away from our destination." Mina pressed her face against her mother's shoulder. Una's hand came up to stroke her daughter's hair, the movement automatic and comforting. "They came out of nowhere. 5 raider ships. They disabled our engines before we even knew what was happening. Then they boarded us." Una's voice got quieter. "They lined everyone up in the cargo bay. They said they were looking for something valuable." Hannah leaned back in her chair. She had heard stories like this before. Raiders in the Outer Rim were getting bolder. The Galactic Union stretched too thin to patrol every shipping lane. Places like this, far from the core worlds, became hunting grounds. "They took the children," Una said, and now tears ran down her face. 15 children total. They said the Galactic Union would pay to get them back. They said the families would pay. They gave us coordinates to send the ransom money. "How much?" Hannah asked. 50,000 credits per child. Una wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm a medical officer. I make decent money, but not that kind of money. I have maybe 3,000 credits saved. Everything else went into this move, into giving my kids a better life." Hannah did the math quickly. 50,000 credits was more than most people made in 5 years. It was an impossible amount for a single mother. I went to the authorities, Una continued. I filed reports. I begged them to send a rescue team. They said they would look into it. They said these things take time. They need to gather intelligence, plan the operation, get approval from multiple departments. How long? Hannah asked. They said, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6. Yuna's voice broke completely. Jiho doesn't have 6 weeks. He doesn't have 4 weeks. Mina looked up at Hannah. Jiho has to take medicine every day. Special medicine for his lungs. He was born too early and they never work right. Yuna nodded. He has chronic respiratory disease. Without his medication, he'll get worse. The raiders took everything. His inhaler, his pills, everything. I have maybe 5 days before he goes into crisis. Maybe 7 if he's lucky and stays calm. The cantina felt too small suddenly. Too crowded. Hannah could hear every conversation, every laugh, every clink of glasses. All these people go about their lives while a sick child counted down his last days in a raider prison. I tried to hire mercenaries, Una said. I went to 3 different groups. One laughed at me. Another said they'd do it for 200,000 credits up front. The third just walked away when I mentioned raiders. Which raiders? Hannah asked. They call themselves the Crimson Skull Gang. Their leader is a man named Taming. He's human, but people say he's as cruel as any alien warlord. Una pulled out a small data pad from her pocket and slid it across the table. This is everything I know. The coordinates they gave us. Information I found about their base. It's not much. Hannah picked up the data pad. The screen showed an asteroid fortress in an uncharted sector. The structure looked heavily fortified with weapon placements and shield generators. The information listed at least 40 raiders, possibly more. Military-grade weapons. Starfighters. Everything a small army would need. This is suicide, Hannah said flatly. Yuna's face crumpled. I know it is, but I had to try. I had to ask. You're the only person who hasn't walked away yet. Mina reached across the table. Her small hand touched Hannah's large-scaled one. Please, she said again. Jiho's really nice. He reads me stories every night. He shares his snacks even when he's hungry. He doesn't deserve to be scared. Hannah looked down at the tiny hand on hers. The girl's skin was so soft, so fragile. Hannah could crush her bones without trying. But Mina wasn't afraid. She trusted Hannah completely based on nothing but a child's instinct. Why me? Hannah asked. You don't know me. I could be dangerous. I could take your money and disappear. I don't have money to take, Una said simply, and I'm desperate. I've been sitting in this bar for 2 hours. Try to find anyone who looked capable. Everyone ignored me. You're the first person who even let me talk. I'm Draken, Hannah said. My people are warriors. Killers. Doesn't that scare you? Una met her eyes for the first time. My son is dying. Right now, the only thing that scares me is doing nothing. Hannah looked at the datapad again. The fortress had multiple entry points, all heavily guarded. The internal layout was unknown. She would be going in blind against 40 or more armed raiders. Even at her best, with full combat gear and backup, this would be nearly impossible. And she wasn't at her best. She hadn't fought in years. Her armor was so long ago. Her weapons were gone. She had a small pistol hidden in her jacket and a knife in her boot. That was it. But she kept seeing Mina's face. She kept feeling that small hand on hers. She remembered standing before the council. She remembered arguing that mercy was not weakness. She remembered saying that true strength meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. They exiled her for those words. They said she brought shame to their people. They said she was weak. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was weak. But looking at this desperate mother and her crying daughter, Hannah realized she would rather be weak with compassion than strong with cruelty. I'll need time to prepare, Hannah said quietly. 2 days. Maybe 3. Una gasped. You'll do it? You'll try to save him? I'll try, Hannah said. I can't promise anything. The odds are bad, really bad, but I'll try. Mina launched herself across the table and wrapped her arms around Hannah's neck. The sudden movement made Hannah freeze. She wasn't used to being touched. She wasn't used to anyone getting this close. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mina said into Hannah's shoulder. Una stood up quickly, pulling Mina back. I'm sorry, she stopped, tears flowing freely now. Thank you. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to repay you. Don't thank me yet, Hannah said. She stood up, her full height making both Una and Mina look small. I need to make some calls, gather information, figure out how to do this without getting us all killed. She headed toward the door, then stopped and looked back. As Hannah walked out of the cantina into the harsh artificial light of the station corridor, she realized something had changed. For the first time in 5 years, she had a purpose beyond just surviving another day. It felt terrifying. It felt right. Hannah spent the next 2 days gathering what she could. She called in favors from people who owed her from past jobs. A weapons dealer she once helped gave her a plasma rifle and 3 energy cells. A ship mechanic traded information for a repair job she did months ago. Piece by piece, she put together what she needed. It wasn't much. The rifle was old and the sights were off. She had a knife, her pistol, and some basic climbing gear. No armor except her natural scales. No backup. No exit plan if things went wrong. She studied the fortress layout on her data pad until her eyes hurt. The Crimson Skull Raiders had chosen their location well. The asteroid sat in a debris field that made approach difficult. Sensors would pick up any ship coming from normal directions. The main entrance had heavy guns that could tear apart anything smaller than a battlecruiser. But Hannah noticed something. There was a maintenance shaft on the dark side of the asteroid. It was small, probably used for waste disposal or emergency venting. The information said it was sealed, but seals could be broken. The problem was getting there. She would need to fly through space, navigate the debris field, and breach the shaft without being detected. Even for a Draken, it was dangerous. One mistake, and she would be dead before she ever reached the fortress. On the second night, Mina came to her small rented room. Una waited in the hallway, giving her daughter space. The little girl carried something wrapped in colorful paper. I made this for you, Mina said, holding it out. Hannah took the gift and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a drawing done in crayon. It showed a stick figure with wings holding hands with 2 smaller stick figures. Above them, Mina had written in shaky letters, "Thank you for being brave." Hannah stared at the drawing for a long time. Something tight formed in her chest, making it hard to breathe. "It's good," she finally said. "That's you." Mina pointed at the winged figure. "And that's me and Jiho. When you bring him home, we'll all be together again." The certainty in her voice hurt more than any weapon. This child believed in her completely. She had no doubt that Hannah would succeed. That kind of faith was a heavy weight to carry. "I'll do my best," Hannah said quietly. Mina hugged her again, quick and fierce, then ran back to her mother. Hannah watched them disappear down the corridor. She looked at the drawing one more time, then carefully folded it and put it in her jacket pocket, close to her heart. The next morning, Hannah stood in the docking bay next to a small transport pod she had rented. It was barely big enough for one person and had minimal life support, but it was quiet and wouldn't show up on most scanners as a threat. She wore a compression suit that would protect her in space for short periods. Draken could survive vacuum better than most species, but even she had limits. She had maybe 10 minutes of useful consciousness in hard vacuum, 15 if she pushed it. The weapons were strapped to her back. The data pad was secured to her wrist. She did one final check of her equipment, then climbed into the pod. The flight to the asteroid took 3 hours. Hannah kept the pod's engines at minimum power, drifting more than flying. She wove through the debris field slowly, using chunks of rock and metal as cover. Twice she had to completely shut down power when Raider patrol ships passed nearby. As she got closer, she could see the fortress clearly. It was built into the asteroid itself, with metal structures extending out like a parasite growing on a host. Lights glowed from windows and ports. She could see the weapons platforms tracking the empty space around them. Hannah guided the pod to the dark side of the asteroid and found the maintenance shaft. It was smaller than she hoped, maybe 2 meters across. The seal was indeed locked, showing red on her scanner. But locks could be broken. She positioned the pod next to the shaft and began suiting up for vacuum exposure. She pulled on a breathing mask that would give her precious extra minutes. She checked her weapons one final time. Then she opened the pod's door. Space hit her like a physical blow. Cold beyond cold. Silent beyond silent. Her Draken biology kicked in immediately. Her scales hardened, creating a temporary barrier. Her lungs sealed, holding the last breath of air. Her heart slowed to conserve oxygen. She pushed off from the pod and floated to the maintenance shaft. Her claws found purchase on the metal surface. She pulled out a small cutting torch and began working on the seal. The torch cut through the lock mechanism slowly, too slowly. She could feel her body starting to rebel against the vacuum. Her vision got darker at the edges. The seal broke with a silent pop. The shaft opened, venting atmosphere into space. Hannah grabbed the edges and pulled herself inside. The moment she was through, an emergency door slammed shut behind her. Atmosphere began flooding back into the shaft. Hannah collapsed on the metal floor, gasping. Her lungs burned. Her scales ached. But she was inside. She gave herself 2 minutes to recover, then started moving. The shaft was dark and cramped. She had to crawl on her hands and knees, her wings scraping against the walls. The rifle dragged behind her, catching on every pipe and wire. The shaft eventually opened into a larger maintenance corridor. Hannah emerged and checked her datapad. According to the layout, she was in the lower levels of the fortress. The holding cells where they kept prisoners were 3 levels up. She moved carefully through corridors, staying in shadows. The fortress was bigger inside than she expected. She passed storage rooms full of stolen goods, weapon caches, living quarters. This wasn't just a temporary hideout. The Crimson Skull Gang had built a real base here. She heard voices and pressed herself against a wall. 2 raiders walked past, laughing about something. They carried rifles casually, not expecting any threats inside their own fortress. Hannah waited until they were gone, then continued moving. She found a stairwell and began climbing. Her body was tired from the space exposure, but she pushed through it. She reached the 2nd level without incident, then the 3rd level. The holding cells were at the end of a long corridor. 2 guards stood outside, looking bored. They were human, both wearing armor and carrying weapons. Between Hannah and them was 50 meters of open space with nowhere to hide. Hannah considered her options. She could try to sneak past, but the corridor was too exposed. She could wait for them to leave, but she didn't have time. Jiho's medication had run out yesterday. Every hour mattered now. That left one option, the one she hoped to avoid. She would have to fight. Hannah checked her rifle one more time. She took a deep breath, feeling her Draken combat instincts wake up after years of sleep. They felt rusty and uncertain, but they were still there. She stepped into the corridor. The guard saw her immediately. Their eyes went wide with shock. For one frozen moment, nobody moved. Then everything happened at once. The guards raised their weapons. Hannah's rifle came up. The corridor exploded with plasma fire and shouting. An alarm began screaming through the fortress. Red lights flashed. Somewhere in the distance, she heard running feet and more shouting. There was no going back now. No stealth. No careful planning. Hannah had just announced her presence to every raider in the fortress, and she was completely alone. Hannah's first shot took down the guard on the left. The 2nd guard managed to fire back, his plasma bolt burning past her shoulder. She dropped low and returned fire. The guard fell. She ran to the holding cell door and blasted the lock. The door slid open, and she rushed inside. 15 children stared at her with terrified eyes. They huddled together in the corner of the cold metal room. Some were crying. Others looked too scared to make any sound at all. They ranged from maybe 5 years old to early teens. "Jiho," Hannah called out. "Where's Jiho?" A thin boy with dark hair raised his hand weakly. He sat against the wall, his breathing loud and raspy. Even from across the room, Hannah could see he was in bad shape. His lips had a blue tint. His chest heaved with each difficult breath. "I'm here to get you out," Hannah said quickly. She moved to the door and looked out into the corridor. She could hear boots pounding on metal floors. Lots of boots. "Everyone stay close to me. Don't run off. Do exactly what I say." But the children didn't move. They pressed themselves harder against the wall, staring at her scales and wings with fear. To them, she probably looked more dangerous than their captors. "Please," Geo gasped out. "She's here to help. My sister sent her." A small girl started crying louder. "She's a monster. She'll eat us." Hannah felt that familiar sting. Monster. She had heard that word so many times it should have stopped hurting, but it never did. "I know I look scary," Hannah said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "But Mina sent me. She wants her brother back. And I'm going to make sure all of you get home safely." Footsteps were getting closer. Hannah could hear shouting. They had maybe seconds before raiders filled this corridor. "We don't have time for this," Hannah said. She grabbed a heavy storage crate and dragged it to the doorway. "Everyone get behind me. Now!" Something in her voice made them move. The children scrambled to get behind her. Geo tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't hold him. An older girl helped him up, letting him lean on her shoulder. The first raiders appeared at the end of the corridor. 5 of them, all armed. They saw Hannah and opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts lit up the hallway. Hannah returned fire from behind the crate, trying to keep them back. "We need to move," she said over her shoulder. "There's another corridor behind us. We go there and find a place to defend." She fired 3 more shots, forcing the raiders to take cover. Then she grabbed the crate with one hand and started backing up, using it as a mobile shield. The children moved with her, staying behind her wings. They made it to the intersection and turned. Hannah spotted a storage room with a heavy door. In there, everyone inside. The children rushed into the room. Hannah was the last one in. She slammed the door shut and locked it. The door was thick metal, designed to protect valuable cargo. It would hold for a while. The room was full of storage containers and equipment. No other exits. They were trapped, but at least they had cover. Plasma bolts started hitting the door from outside. The impacts made loud banging sounds. Some of the younger children screamed. The older ones tried to comfort them, but everyone was terrified. Hannah quickly scanned the room. She found medical supplies in one container. She grabbed an oxygen mask and brought it to Jiho. "Here, this will help." Jiho pressed the mask to his face and breathed deeply. The blue tint in his lips started to fade a little. "Thank you," he whispered. The door shook as something heavy hit it. The raiders were trying to break through. "What do we do?" the older girl asked. Her name tag said Hygiene. She looked about 14. "They're going to get in." "Not if I can help it," Hannah said. She looked around the room again. There were metal pipes running along the ceiling, air vents, electrical conduits. And there, in the corner, she saw something useful, a welding torch. She grabbed the torch and moved to the door. The metal around the frame was weak from all the impacts. She could use that. "Everyone get to the back of the room," Hannah ordered. "Cover your eyes." She ignited the torch and began welding the door to frame. Sparks flew everywhere. The heat was intense, but her scales protected her. She worked quickly, sealing the door shut from the inside. The pounding on the door got more violent. She could hear shouting from the other side. They were getting angry now, getting desperate. Hannah finished welding and stepped back. The door was sealed solid. It would take them time to cut through it now. But that also meant they were truly trapped. No way out for anyone. "Is there another way out?" Hyojin asked, reading Hannah's thoughts. Hannah looked at the air vent. It was big enough for the children, maybe, but not for her, not with her wings. Then she had another idea. She pulled out her datapad and activated the emergency beacon. It was a long shot, but maybe someone would pick up the signal. Maybe the Galactic Union patrols. Maybe passing ships. Anyone who might help. "What's that?" one of the younger children asked. A call for help, Hannah said. She looked at all 15 faces watching her. They were dirty and scared and tired, but they were alive. And while we wait, I'm going to make sure nobody gets through that door. She positioned herself in front of the door, rifle ready. If they cut through, she would be the first thing they faced. Gio coughed hard, the oxygen mask slipping. Hannah knelt beside him and adjusted it. Up close, she could see how young he really was. Just a kid who should be playing games and going to school, not fighting for his life in a raider fortress. Mina talks about you all the time, Jiho said quietly. She said you would come. I didn't believe her. I thought nobody would come for us. She's a smart kid, Hannah said. You should be proud to have a sister like that. Are we going to die here? A small boy asked. He looked maybe 6 years old. Hannah looked at him. She could lie. She could give them false hope. But children deserved honesty, even when the truth was hard. Not if I can help it, she said. I'm going to fight for you. All of you. As long as I'm breathing, nobody gets through that door. An explosion rocked the room. The raiders were using heavier weapons now. The door glowed red in spots where they were cutting through. Hannah stood up and checked her rifle. 3 energy cells left. Not enough. Not nearly enough for what was coming. But she thought of Mina's drawing in her pocket. She thought of that small hand touching hers without fear. She thought of all the reasons she became an outcast in the first place. Her people said mercy was weakness. They said compassion had no place in a warrior's heart. They were wrong. Standing here, protecting these children with her life, Hannah finally understood what true strength meant. It wasn't about how hard you could hit. It wasn't about showing no mercy. Real strength was standing between the innocent and danger, even when the odds were impossible, even when you were scared, even when you knew you might not survive. The door began to buckle. Sparks flew from the welded seams. Voices shouted from the other side. They were almost through. Hannah raised her rifle and planted her feet. Her wings spread wide, making her look bigger, more threatening. Her scales gleamed in the dim light. Stay behind me, she told the children one more time. The door exploded inward. Raiders poured through the opening. Hannah opened fire. The first 3 raiders fell before they even made it fully through the door. Hannah's shots were precise despite her exhaustion, but more kept coming. They had numbers. She had determination. A plasma bolt grazed her arm. She felt the burn through her scales but ignored it. Another bolt hit the wall behind her, too close to the children. She adjusted her position, making sure her body blocked every angle. Her rifle ran dry. She threw it at the nearest raider and pulled out her pistol. Smaller, weaker, but still deadly in close quarters. A raider rushed her with a knife. Hannah's tail whipped around and knocked his legs out. She fired twice. He didn't get up, but they were wearing her down. For every one she stopped, 2 more appeared. Her left wing had a burn hole through it now. Her shoulder ached. Her breathing was getting heavy. Then she heard a voice that made her blood run cold. Enough! The raiders stopped advancing. A man walked through the broken doorway. He was tall and broad, wearing armor that looked expensive. His face had scars that told stories of old fights. This was Tameen, the leader. You're Draken, he said, studying Hannah with interest. I thought your kind didn't care about humans, especially human children. Things change, Hannah said. She kept her pistol raised, aimed at his chest. Tameen laughed. Clearly, you came all this way, fought through my people. For what? A sick kid and some brats nobody will miss. Everyone will be missed by someone, Hannah said. Behind her, she heard Jiho coughing again. The oxygen was helping, but he needed real medicine, real doctors. Time was still running out. Here's what's going to happen, Tameen said. He pulled out his own weapon, a heavy plasma cannon that looked like it could punch through a ship's hull. You're going to put down your gun. You're going to step aside. And I'm going to finish what should have been simple business. No, Hannah said simply. No. Tameen raised an eyebrow. Look around. You're surrounded. You're hurt. You're out of ammunition. What exactly do you think you can do? Hannah felt something building inside her, something she had kept buried for 5 years. The fire that lived in every Draken's chest. The ancient power her people used in battle. She had sworn never to use it again. Using it meant accepting what she was. A weapon, a destroyer. But looking at the children behind her, at Jiho struggling to breathe, at all those scared faces counting on her, Hannah realized something. Power wasn't good or evil. It was what you chose to do with it that mattered. Last chance, Taemin said. Step aside or die. I choose option 3, Hannah said. She opened her mouth and unleashed her fire breath. The flames erupted from her throat like a dragon from old Earth legends. Blue and white flames so hot they turned metal into liquid. The corridor lit up brighter than day. Raiders screamed and scattered. Taemin dug behind cover, his armor scorched. The flames didn't reach the children because Hannah controlled it perfectly, directing it away from them. She kept the flames going until her throat felt raw. When she finally stopped, the corridor was a smoking ruin. Half the raiders were down. The others were running, terrified. Taemin stood up slowly. His armor was blackened, but he was alive. He looked at Hannah with new respect mixed with fear. You're full of surprises. I warned you, Hannah said. Her voice was rough from the fire. Taemin raised his plasma cannon. But parlor tricks won't save you. He fired. The blast was huge, meant to kill her instantly. But Hannah's wings snapped open, and she launched herself forward, moving faster than he expected. The blast hit the wall where she had been standing. She crashed into Taemin, her claws raking across his armor. They went down together, rolling across the burn floor. He was strong, trained in combat, but she was Draken, bred for battle for thousands of years. They fought hand to hand. His punches were powerful, but her scales absorbed most of the impact. Her claws left deep scratches in his armor. He got his hands around her throat. She bit his arm and tasted blood. Behind them, the children watched in horror and hope. Hyojin held Jiho close, keeping the oxygen mask on his face. Taemin managed to throw Hannah off. He grabbed his plasma cannon again. But before he could fire, something unexpected happened. The children attacked. They threw tools from the storage containers. Metal pipes. Heavy equipment. A wrench hit Taemin in the head. A pipe caught him in the knee. It wasn't much, but it was enough to distract him. Hannah used that moment. She lunged forward and grabbed the cannon, ripping it from his hands. Then she hit him with it. Hard. Once. Twice. 3 times. Taemin fell and didn't get up. Hannah stood over him, breathing hard. Every part of her body hurt, but she was still standing. The children were still safe. Then she heard something beautiful. Sirens. Not the fortress alarms. Ship sirens. Outside. The beacon, Hyojin said, looking at the data pad that had fallen on the floor. It worked. Through the hole in the wall, Hannah could see ships approaching the fortress. Galactic Union ships with their distinctive markings. Her emergency beacon had reached them. They were here. The remaining raiders saw the ships too. They started surrendering, throwing down their weapons. Nobody wanted to fight the Galactic Union military. Hannah walked back to the children. She knelt down in front of Jiho. Help is here. Real doctors. They'll take care of you. Jiho smiled weakly behind his oxygen mask. Thank you. Tell Min I'm okay. You can tell her yourself, Hannah said. The next few hours were chaos. Union soldiers secured the fortress. Medical teams rushed in and took care of the children. Jiho was first on a stretcher, surrounded by doctors checking his vitals. The other children were examined, treated, wrapped in blankets. Hannah sat against the wall, letting a medic treat her wounds. Burns on her arm and shoulder. Cuts from the fight. Exhaustion that went bone deep. But she was alive. A Union officer approached her. He looked stern but not unkind. You're the one who sent the beacon? Yes, Hannah said. You know that operating as an unregistered mercenary is illegal, he said. Hannah nodded. She had expected this. Probably arrest. Maybe prison time. However, the officer continued, you also saved 15 children and helped us capture a major raider gang. That counts for something. He handed her a data card. We've been having problems with raiders in this sector. Too many, too organized. We need people who can respond quickly when official channels move too slow. What is this? Hannah asked, looking at the card. A job offer. Unofficial rescue operations. You have authority to act in emergencies. We provide resources, intelligence, backup when possible. And you'd have a team eventually. Others like you who want to help. Hannah stared at the card. A purpose. A real one. Not just surviving day to day, but actually making a difference. Think about it, the officer said. No pressure, but we could use someone like you. 3 days later, Hannah stood in a space station docking bay. She wore new clothes, had fresh bandages, and her wounds were healing well. Her wing would have a scar, but it still worked fine. She heard running footsteps behind her. She turned just in time to catch Mina as the little girl launched herself into a hug. You did it! You saved him. Mina was crying and laughing at the same time. Yuna was there too, with Jiho in a wheelchair. He still looked weak, but so much better than before. Color had returned to his face. His breathing was steady. Thank you, Yuna said, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for bringing my son home. Jiho held out something to Hannah. A new drawing, this one done with markers on better paper. It showed Hannah with her wings spread wide, surrounded by 15 smiling children. At the top, Jiho had written, Our guardian angel. Hannah took the drawing carefully. She thought about the job offer in her pocket. She thought about all the other desperate families out there, all the other children who needed help. What will you do now? Yuna asked. Hannah looked down at Mina, who was still hugging her waist. She looked at the drawing. She thought about the council who cast her out, who said she was weak for choosing mercy. She had been running from who she was for 5 years, ashamed of her compassion, afraid to care. But standing here, seeing these children alive because she chose to act, Hannah finally understood. Her people were wrong. Mercy wasn't weakness. Compassion wasn't failure. True strength was standing up when others wouldn't. True courage was caring when it would be easier not to. She was Draken. She was a warrior. But she was also something her people could never understand. She was someone who fought not for glory or conquest, but for the innocent, for those who couldn't fight for themselves. I'm going to help others, Hannah said. There are more children out there who need someone, more families in trouble. I can't save everyone, but I can try. Mina looked up at her with those big, trusting eyes. Will we see you again? Hannah smiled. It felt strange on her face. She hadn't smiled in so long. Yes, I promise. She said her goodbyes and headed to her ship, the new one, provided by the Galactic Union. It was bigger than her old transport pod, faster, better equipped. On the side, someone had already painted a name, Guardian's Wing. Hannah climbed aboard and started the engines. As she lifted off, she looked at the 2 drawings carefully stored in a frame on the wall. Mina's crayon drawing and Jiho's marker masterpiece. Reminders of why she fought, why she would keep fighting. Her communication console beeped. A new emergency beacon. A mining colony under attack. Children in danger. Hannah set her course and engaged the engines. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't running away from her past. She was flying toward her future. The Outcast had found her purpose, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.